just get feedback. If you're just getting started too, just don't spend a lot of money. If you're wanting to do stop motion animation, all you really need is your iPhone, some lamps to keep the lighting consistent, and you can literally get anything around your house and just start moving it around.
Porter Young is a stop-motion animator who's animated on various projects with companies such as Hasbro, Mattel, and most recently, Henry Selick's Wendell and Wild, coming out on Netflix. Porter, thank you for taking the time to meet with us today. How are you doing?
Good. How are you?
Doing well, thank you. We're excited to hear your story. Your story is a little bit different than a lot of people's average high school, college, job type of thing going into a career. Here at My Tech High, we just love personalized education, just trying to figure out whatever fits best for that particular student. And so for you, Porter, what was your educational experience like?
Well, I really only I only got my GED, and I got my start in animation in Valencia, Spain. So I ended up doing a animation course with the studio over there, and that really is like all the education I've had to really complete in order to become an animator.
That's really cool. So you didn't go, how much did you go through normal high school all the way through the end?
Yeah, so I did high school in Utah. I think I went to a middle school for like half of my freshman year, and then that was a public middle school, and I ended up deciding that wasn't really for me, and so my parents and I both decided to just try out a charter school. So I ended up going to a charter school for the rest of my freshman year, and then my sophomore year. Um, and it was like the middle slash endish of my sophomore year of high school that I found out about this course in Spain. And that's when, yeah, I just like I went and did the course, and like after that was like I don't really want to go back to school. I found out what I wanted to do. So I ended up just getting my GED in like 3 months, I think. And also mentioned during that time, I got my driver's license as well. So I just kind of did all that in 3 months. It was in December when I got my GED and driver's license. And I just started right away on a new demo reel and started sending that out to studios. So
That is really cool. When did you figure out that animation was your passion? Did you always kind of, as a child, maybe draw a bunch of stuff, or maybe you make some of those like little flip books with a bunch of paper that sometimes a lot of kids do? Like,
yeah.
were you always that way, or did you just kind of just find that as you were looking for opportunities for a different education path?
Yeah, ever since like I was a kid, I just was always just trying to tell stories in a visual way. So um I was drawing comics in elementary school, and I was drawing like my favorite cartoons I would see on TV, and I would also sculpt like miniature, super detailed, tiny food. So I was sculpting. I was making stuff out of duct tape. A lot of kids in elementary school knew me as the duct tape kid, so I could make them a duct tape wallet with whatever their favorite character thing was, and put that on a wallet for them. And so I was just always like making art. But I would say in middle school is when I really discovered like how animation was made and or just created in general. And so that's when I started messing around with a program called Adobe Flash, and started doing like essentially flipbook animations, but like on a computer with a little pen tablet. And I quickly learned I couldn't draw very well, and um, I also just didn't really understand computers at that time super well. So I was like, man, like I really love to animate, but I just I can't draw and I don't understand 3D animation software. So I'm like, what do I do? So I found out, I started learning about stop motion animation, and I'd say again, when I was in my sophomore year, I started realizing like, like looking back now, I really had not a lot to worry about, but at that time, I just got this overwhelming anxiety and fear of like, in 2 years, like I'm gonna be like an adult and I have to figure out like what I'm gonna do with my life, and I was just like, I really want to be an animator, but I just don't think I can make a career out of it. Um, but I'm like, if I'm gonna do it, I got to figure out how to get it to a professional level. So I ended up um I ended up just like figuring out like about this course in Spain. I didn't want to like do a course, like locally taught by like some like kid or something, like, oh, here's like a little summer camp on like claymation or something. Not that those
Exactly.
things,
Yeah.
like not that those things are bad, but I
No.
just was like, I really want to learn, see if I could learn at a professional level. But unfortunately, there's a bit of an age gap for me. Like the big like 4-year bachelor degree animation programs are meant for like college students, and I'm like, I want to learn that stuff now. And so that really just pushed me. Like, I was like going on like page 27 on Google, like just deep diving, like, just, is there anything out there that I could learn, animation in general from just like professionals at my age? And I ended up finding this course in Spain taught by a studio literally called Clay Animation. They've now changed their name to Inspira Animation. And they taught this course with um, with an art college in Valencia called the Barrera Art and College of Design. And it's 6 weeks every summer. I haven't checked. I think with COVID and stuff, they haven't really been running it for the last couple years, but it's like a 6 to 8 week course on just how to do stop motion character animation at a studio level. And I was like really stoked about that. And it was geared towards more college students though. And I was just like, you know what? Like, whatever, I'm gonna send them my reel, just see if I get any response. Like, the worst thing they'll tell me is like, you're too young, whatever. But 2 months later, I just didn't hear anything, and I just was like, I just said forget it and just started. I was just working a part-time job, and I got an email one day out of nowhere, and they're like, "Hey, you're accepted into our course. Like, can you get to Spain in June?" And I was like, "What the heck?" And my parents were really shocked and just like, "Whoa, this is happening!" Like, like we didn't know like you were actually like going for this. And I'm like, yeah, like it's happening, so let's make it happen. And I just saved up some money and got a plane ticket and just went to Spain for the summer. So to answer your question though, it was there like I'll never forget the moment on like my first day of the course where my mentor was animating a puppet live, and gradually we were seeing this character come to life, and it was just such a powerful moment for me. And like I just knew right then and there, like, this is my life's calling. Like, I have to do this. Like, I don't care what it takes. Like, I'm gonna do this for like as long as I can. And
That's
so
incredible.
yeah, so that's just really, it was that course that really just changed my life's direction, honestly. And like I have to thank my mentors there for that. So like,
Absolutely.
it,
That's an incredible story. And the fact even that you got that inspiration that you say, yes, this is what I want to do. This is my life's calling. Not a lot of people have that, especially at your age. And
yeah,
even just in general, even people that are like 40, 50, 60, whatever, like they're sometimes still trying to figure out what they want to do with their part of their life. So I think that's really cool. And one thing you said earlier was that you maybe weren't the best at drawing, or you didn't totally understand 3D animation, how that worked, all that software and everything, and yet you still were on page 27 or whatever of Google trying to just figure it out for yourself. I think that's a very admirable quality that you have. It's just that you're able to do that research, because not a lot of people would want to. What were maybe some of the, I don't know, inspirations behind, like what drove you to keep going and keep going? Because there are a lot of different paths that are a lot easier than flying all the way to Spain and being away and learning all of that at such a higher level than is normal. What drove you to do all that?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, really, it's really just passion that drove me, honestly. Which I know is a little cliche, but it's true. I love just animation. And I guess I would say too, like the films that really started to have an impact and influence on me, from when I was in middle school, and like, I was starting to form like, you know, opinions and things on just the world and like human interaction, etc. And like these films had a really powerful impact on me. And like I was like, that's really, quite honestly, amazing. You can have that level of impact on an audience around the world, and not only that, but I just think it's a miracle you can like bring any character or object to life, whether it's through drawing it, through modeling it and animating it on a computer, or building a real puppet like what we do in stop motion, and taking a picture, moving it a little bit, taking another picture, and just ultimately bringing all these characters and objects to life, and to deliver a performance that can again connect with audiences around the world. And that, like, honestly, that I think that's really what's drove me this far, is just the ability to just tell endearing stories, and bringing these characters and objects to life. That's that just gave me such a strong desire to like just keep going even when it gets hard.
Yeah.
All I remember actually, on my first job, one day I was struggling because I had a stomach virus and I was alone in a foreign country. And I was animating, and I just was like really down, just like, why am I doing this? Like I'm making a Play-Doh octopus right now. Like this is so, just like, what am I doing? Like, and I remember my director one day walked up to me and was like, hey, like, the people at Hasbro have seen this, and like one of their kids uh saw one of our episodes recently, and like really laughed really hard at like just the way the octopus moved or something like that. And I remember that moment, like it clicked, and I was like, oh whoa, like it's not just about me. It's like I'm creating something that can like make people feel emotion, and bring them joy. And that moment is like kind of what kept me going, and just was like, oh, that's really cool. Like, so
That's really cool. I love that you were inspired as a young kid. You felt those emotions as a young kid, and now you're able to do that for other young people and to inspire them. And then that cycle can just keep going. I think that's
yeah.
pretty cool. I do want to connect the dots there between your course in Spain and your first job. I don't know how many jobs you've had since then, but what kind of happened from the point that you finished that course? Were you able to jump right into a job? Or did it take a little bit of job searching and kind of sending your portfolio around a little bit? What was that experience like?
Yeah. Say, so when I got back, I first had to, in my case, like, the other students in my course were older and didn't have to worry about an educational obligation like me. So
Mhm.
they were able to think more like, okay, how am I going to network? How am I going to get my work out there. But for me, I had this obligation first thing, like, okay, I still have to do my junior and senior year of high school. In fact, I think when I got back, junior year was starting for me in like 2 weeks. And I just was like, I'll be honest, I felt kind of like depressed because just personally for me, I didn't have the greatest educational experience in high school. And I just was like, man, like I finally found my life's calling, and like I have to like go back and just grunge out stuff that I don't really want to do, and I know like, you know, with a more mature mind now, I recognize all high school programs and etc. Like it's good to be well rounded. It's good to learn, but like, I believe education is very unique for each person, and it not everyone can fit in the same box, so to speak. Like, and that was definitely the case for me. Is like I just was like, I do not fit in with the traditional academic path. Like this just isn't for me. And so basically I just, again, that's kind of what drove me to figure out like I'm going to get my GED and I'm just going to take a leap of faith and just go for this. And so that's what I did. I just focused on my GED for like 3 months. I did some like night classes at the local community college, and like, just was trying to learn as much as I could to just get out of high school and just get going. And then I'd say like after I got my GED is when I really started focusing. Um, I should also mention really quick too, because it is important. I had a demo reel at the end of this course from Spain, and I started sending that just, to some folks I started talking with over email who were in the stop motion biz. And I didn't know this, but one of my friends sent my demo reel to the animation supervisor at Leica Animation Studios, which they're, in my opinion, they're the world's best stop motion animation studio. They made the films Coraline, Kubo and the Two Strings, Box Trolls, etc. Their stuff is like they release it on a theatrical level. It's a big deal. So I was just like, holy cow, this is crazy. And that supervisor ended up reaching out to me and giving me like a bunch of advice on like, what exercises I should be doing to get to a feature film level. And me and my family ended up going on like a vacation to Oregon, and I somehow told them like, oh yeah, like I won't be able to like, do your exercises for a while. I'm on vacation in Oregon. And he's like, why don't you stop by the studio? And I was like, what? Um, so yeah, I ended up stopping by Leica, and like I'll never forget that experience. And I just was like, that gave me another boost, like why I want to do this. And that was just so inspiring to me. And I just remember being like, I hope when I'm like 25, I can like intern there, like I hope like one day, just way out in the future, because I'm no good at animating right now. And so anyways, my demo reel also was sent to some studios in Los Angeles. And I ended up flying down to LA to tour some studios, and one of them actually ended up turning the tour into like an interview. And I'm like 16 years old, and like they want to offer me like a job that like college students would kill for. And I just was like, I don't know, I just was like, whoa, like this is crazy. So I ended up turning that down. Just it just wasn't the right gig for me. But anyways, I should so back to, again, how did I get from, Spain to like my first gig? I ended up like developing a new demo reel because I wanted to just like, keep getting better and just put my best foot forward. And I ended up sending that reel around again in like the springtime of that year, and I got some offers from some studios, and ultimately I decided on an offer from the studio who taught me how to animate. They were like, hey, like we didn't know you graduated high school early. That's, that's cool. We have a job for you if you want to, come work with us. And I was like, sweet. So it was on Hasbro's The Play-Doh Show. It's a YouTube series for toddlers. And that's where I really got my start. It was just, I worked on a new demo reel. I sent it out to people, and it just kind of happened from there. So
Wow, that's really cool. So you say you created the demo reel, so that means you've created your own characters and you've created your own little stop animations outside of any studio or class. Is that correct?
yeah, I will say, again, how you mentioned earlier, like I recognized I had a limitation. At that time, my limitation was I wasn't very good at the actual sculpting of the character. And I could build like it's called an armature in a puppet. It's like a skeleton that allows the puppet to be held up, when you move it, because if it doesn't have a skeleton, it's just going to fall down. So I was like okay at making armatures, but I was like, on this demo reel, like I don't want to show just like a skeleton armature walking around. Like I want to like have like a full on puppet. And so I recognized my limitation though, was like I can't really create a super appealing character right now. So I reached out to one of my friends in the animation industry, and he built me a puppet. And so yeah, I ended up just focusing on like just how can I like make the best animation to my ability. And like that's all I focused on. Like I didn't focus on like camera and lighting. I didn't focus on like, the set building and stuff. Like I was like, I'm gonna just be like the best character animator I can be. And so I ended up just creating a bunch of, you know, animations during that time with that puppet. And, that's, I just, comped all those tests together and, started sending them out. So.
Gotcha. That makes a lot of sense. And I guess now that I'm learning just here already more about the stop animation industry,
Mhm.
there's bound to be, obviously, I'm feel like I'm kind of dumb saying this, but of course there's a whole team of people that work on the set, and whole people that work on the lighting, and people that work on the cameras, and I'm sure there's audio and voice acting and all that kind of stuff that goes into this. So then it sounds like you just work on the actual sculptures or the actual figurines, I guess, for lack of a better word, that are
Yeah.
animated.
Yeah. So you're exactly right. There are people like there's a whole camera and lighting department. There's a whole, we call it the puppet department, and like then there's subcategories in a puppet department. So there's the people who like make the armatures, the people who like have to cast those armatures in like a material like silicone. I mean, some studios even get it down to like there's a department just to make the hands for a character.
Wow, that would be pretty crazy. That's a lot of detail right there.
Yeah. And so, I mean, even there's like a hair department and then a costume department. And then there's like the people who build the sets, etc. So my job is I'm in the animation department. So my job is to only move the character, take a picture, move the character, take a picture. I bring it to life. That's my job. So
Gotcha.
um
And
yeah.
I've heard something along the lines of, I don't know, maybe you could give me a general length of time that it takes to make like 1 minute worth of real-time footage. Like how long in real life does it take to make like a minute or an hour or whatever of real-time stop animation footage?
Yeah. Well, actually, I on the most recent project I worked on, I did a 1 minute sequence. So that's actually a perfect question, and that took me 3 months.
Wow,
Yeah,
that is not what I expected. I expected
and
like a couple days or a week, maybe.
yeah, no, that was my first like long stretch of time, because I before that I was working on television shows and commercials and YouTube series, and like, those studios taught me to just pump out footage as fast as you can, which, it's a good skill to have, but it depends on the talent of the animator. Sometimes you can still get really decent looking animation even on a tight schedule, but for working on a feature film, which this project I worked on with Henry Selick, Wendell and Wild, this was my first feature, so I was not prepared to be on the same stage every day, 5 days a week, sometimes 6 days a week, for 3 months. Like it kind of like, I remember just feeling like, whoa, like this takes a long time. But you end up, once you kind of get past that, once you just kind of get into the zone, get into the work, you stop paying attention to how long it's taking. And like, it's this weird like time perception thing for me, at least, where I'm like, sometimes I'm like, oh my gosh, I've been on this frame forever. And like, I'll just keep animating, and like I'll play it back and be like, wait, we're almost done with the shot. Like what? Like it just depends. So yeah, in general, like I'd say like, if you're, it just varies from the studio. If you're in television, you're probably gonna want to not want to. You're gonna be doing like a minute of footage just in probably like a couple weeks. But if you're on a feature film, it can take months. I know like some animators at Pixar, doing computer animation, sometimes in the course of the 2 years they're there, they'll only walk out of the studio with maybe like 2 to 3 minutes of footage after 2 years. So it really just depends on the project, but it does take a lot of time. So
That's pretty crazy. That is a lot of time. And
yeah.
yeah, I can totally see how, depending on the type of film or whatever you're gonna make, that it would be different. That's cool. So just to recap then, just to kind of connect some of these dots, we kind of got all over the place a little bit. So you did a little bit of education in Utah, middle school kind of thing, but then you were working on your own little projects, and you kind of sent them out to different studios. You applied to this Spain one, and you said, hey, that would be really cool. You got accepted. You went over to Spain. After that, you came back to the States, and you finished your education through a GED.
Yeah.
And then it sounds like you've had like a bunch of little jobs. Do you kind of reference those jobs like jobs within one job, or have you worked at a lot of different studios? And then kind of just to cap it all off, from all of those little ones, where are you right now?
Yeah. So yeah, you're right. I have worked at like a lot of studios. I'd say the beginning of my career was a little bit like easier to just understand. Like I worked on the Play-Doh show in Spain, and then I had a really long hiatus between that time because I wasn't quite sure what to do in my situation, because I was gonna go serve a mission for my church, which I ended up doing, but I ended up returning home early from that. And I after or sorry, I'm trying to connect the dots myself. So again, after the Play-Doh show, I just was in the spot where it's like I can't get long-term jobs because I'm going on this church mission. So I just was trying to figure out what could I do short term. And so before my mission, I ended up interning at Leica. And that really helped me a lot. So after my mission, um, I ended up getting my first like gig in Los Angeles. And I only thought I was going to be there for a few months, but I ended up staying in LA for a year. And so after that gig, I started, if you do one job in LA, your name normally gets around fast. So that's when I started working on multiple projects in Los Angeles. I mean, I worked on like student short films. TV shows, etc. But I say after LA is when I got my job, like my first feature film on Wendell and Wild. That's when that happened, was after LA. So, but now, so I just wrapped on Wendell and Wild with Netflix. So I'm currently on a break right now, um, which is good to do in this industry because it can get very long. Um, so the next thing for me though is next month I'll be starting at Leica on their next feature film. So I don't know if I'm allowed to say the name of it yet, but
Don't worry about it.
anyways, yeah. So I'll be animating on their next project.
Perfect. Perfect. Well, I think that's an incredible journey. The fact that you went through all different like routes and you took breaks where a lot of people wouldn't take breaks, just in lots of different areas. So I think that's really cool because there's so many students out there, so many families. They're trying to figure out what's best for their kids and what's best for themselves. Um, and to see an example like you that is very off normal, which isn't bad by any means, it's just very off normal,
Yeah.
is still really cool to see that. And you love what you do and you're passionate about it. And I would say you're very successful, even as young as you are, so whatever that means to people. But so, I mean, just congratulations, really, honestly. I think it's pretty cool what you do.
Thank you.
Just to kind of wrap up here, what is some advice you would give to maybe some kids that are still in high school, maybe even a little bit younger, that kind of have an animation itch in them, maybe an artistic itch, something like that? What kind of advice would you give to them who maybe want to follow in your footsteps?
Yeah. Well, I if you have the itch, keep following it. Have fun. That's what I would do, honestly. If I were to go back, I would tell myself to have a little more fun. Just have fun creating, and if you're like me though, and you're like, I want to be serious about this and take this to the next level. I'd really recommend just get used to getting feedback. Um, it's there's a lot of people who can take feedback very personally, and something I learned early in my career is feedback is never directed towards the actual person; it's directed towards the work. And so, which it's still really hard because art is a thing where it's it's a very personal thing and you can get very attached to it, so it's very hard not to take it personally. But um just start getting feedback, and you know check your sources where you're getting your feedback from too. Like your mom and dad, like maybe like, oh, this is great, but it's like, okay, like if you want to work in a professional, if you want to be a professional and whatever you want to do, you know reach out online. We like the people I work with, were they always tell me, you know the information my generation has access to now, they didn't have access to that in their time. Like you had to like go to a phone book and try to call someone in your city who did animation, and like you know like they had to go through all these crazy routes to find people doing animation. So um just take advantage, like look up just stop motion demo reels, see if their contact information is there, and shoot them an email. Or if you have Instagram or any other social media app, just like start reaching out to people there, start seeing if you can get feedback on your work. That's really what I did. Is I just you know I never expected a response back, but that's what I did, was just send out my shots and just ask for feedback. So, you know, I guess to keep it clear and simple, so just get feedback. If you're just getting started too, just don't spend a lot of money. If you're wanting to do stop motion animation, um, all you really need is your iPhone, um, some lamps to keep the lighting consistent, and you can literally get anything around your house and just start moving it around. And yeah, I mean, that's really my only advice, is just getting feedback and just have fun, make a lot of animation, you know? So,
Perfect. That is really good feedback. I like that a lot. Thank you. And
mhm.
lastly, do you have any social media, maybe Twitter or an Instagram that our students could follow you on? Do you post your portfolio on really anything,
I
or a website? I don't know.
yeah, I'm a little different. I'm not on social media. It's just not really my thing. But I do have a Vimeo page. You know, people can look me up there. Just type in Porter Young animation reel, and you should see my Vimeo page that has some of my clips on there. So
Perfect. Sounds good. We'll be sure to advertise that as well for you. So, but yeah, again, Porter, thank you for taking the time. I appreciate it. This is going to be very helpful, very inspiring to me and to all the other students that are going to be able to watch this. So, thank you.
all right. Thank you. I appreciate it.